Okay, this video is a little thing on books and a little bit different methodology, which I hope you enjoy, because it's something you won't get, well, you can get at some other universities because they use my materials. But first of all, the electronic book called The Titans. What's that all about? Okay, it is a fictional interviewer, okay, Tom Madrock, and he's interviewing, okay, the great people of operations management in the last 200 years, okay? And he's interviewing about current topics, and that's what's a little different, okay? Now, how can I do that? Am I just making this up? When he interviews Henry Ford, I make about just-in-time or lean manufacturing? No, I've done the research, written many books, 20-some books now. I've done the research of Henry Ford, for example. He wrote 4 books, left volumes of letters on how his operating procedures were. People wrote about his operating procedures. His plant managers actually left journals. All this is available. In this particular case, Ford is up in Detroit with Ford Motor and at the Henry Ford Museum. So I've researched that to think, how would he answer that? And it turns out Henry Ford is sort of the founder of lean manufacturing. Toyota takes credit, but no, they don't take credit. We give Toyota credit. If you read Toyota's books, they say it was Henry Ford in the 1940s. They did come over and visit him for 6 months and talk to him, and he was very open about his procedure. Funny, after he died, shortly after that, his son, a Harvard grad, said, "I don't want anything to do with my old man's policy of this lean manufacturing stuff," and moved away from it. And Toyota took it and perfected it. So it's things like that. There's interviews in there with not only the guys you would know, like a Henry Ford, there's his plant managers, 2 of them, who left a great deal of writing I've researched. So who invented the assembly lines? Not Ford. Ford gets a lot of credit, but it was his plant manager, Swergeson, for example. There's an interview in there of Bob Jones, one of the greatest plant managers of our time. A lot was written by him. He left a lot of letters. And he talks about how he had to manage in the steel industry, 150 years ago. But, it applies today. He, like Carnegie, was big on vertical integration. And we'll learn more about that in the course. But so you're going to have all these interviews. You're going to have an interview in there with Adam Smith. That's one of the first you'll read, the on free trade. And I spent a long time working on his, even my PhD thesis. So that interview was rather easy. And you'll look at the other end, William McKinley, a president, but he was for protectionism, something we're talking about today again, reciprocity. Trump always talks about reciprocity. Where did that concept really come from? William McKinley. That was his counter to, quote, free trade. Okay? There's an interview in there with a guy named Robert Owen about 200 years ago. Some people used to call him the father of personnel management, but more importantly, he was a communist. And he set up a manufacturing system in England, which he then brought to the United States, and the Quakers took over. You can see some of his manufacturing cities in Kentucky. There's one in Pennsylvania called Economy outside of Pittsburgh. These are restored historical sites now. And he believed in sort of a communal type manufacture, although you'll see that he did issue stock and so forth. And of course his writings. So I think you'll not only learn the history, and it's so critical to understand the history of business if you're going to be great at it. All the greats in business, all the greats in anything, sports, military, they know the history of their profession. So you're going to get a dose of history, yes, but you're going to get all the current topics. Okay? Slides in particular have all the current topics, so you'll have that available. So it's a very different approach. Like I said, it's used in a number of other universities. I've set them up, and I think you'll enjoy it. Just because it'll be different. In college, you should think a little different. It shouldn't be just I go out and get a textbook for you, and here's the textbook, and I parrot the textbook, and I get slides from the textbook company, and all that. These are all my own materials, developed over the years. And I've done a lot of consulting, 20 years of some consulting, ISO 9000, lean manufacturing. Today, I still work at companies like Chrysler, Lively Glass, Ford Motor, and so forth, consulting on a lot of these things. So hopefully we'll bring a lot of that in, okay? I think you'll enjoy it. I really do. I have a true passion and love for it myself. So I think you'll understand the books are rooted in, yes, Henry Ford's dead, we can't interview him, but it's the best answer that he might give based on real research. So I think, like I said, I think it's a different. What I find is students, Michigan State particularly, found students liked it, read easy, the interviews, but at times the recall wasn't as good. We're not sure why that is, because it's not like a textbook in that respect. Okay, so I'll warn you a little bit about that. You may want to high-low, take notes. Of course, it's electronic, it's free. The unedited version is free. My other books are also, you may have in class, may not, are industrial biographies. These are biographies written about great operation managers. Andrew Carnegie, Charles Schwab. Again, they're written as biographies, but it's a unique genre. I like to think I created this genre because I don't think there are many others that deal with it. It starts with their life and goes to the very end and compares it to things today, but all in relationship to operations. What was important in the childhood of somebody towards their operations career. So I don't cover all the little things, that other biographies would. That's why I call it an industrial biography. I also then, towards the end of those books, I start comparing them to, how Ford did develop lean manufacturing and how that evolved today. So it's truly a unique genre, and one I'm really, I guess, proud of, because it's been a good feeling doing the research for so many years, and living through their letters, and a lot of these guys left tons of letters. There used to be an era where, 1800s, early 1900s, everybody wrote a diary, everybody kept their letters, their business letters. So, it's tremendous. H.J. Hines, what insights? Reading his personal letters about the business and the early going and later on, and then when his son took over, how the business grew and the problems and all that. It's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff. It talks about the fears that managers have when they're managing people. And you'll run into that stuff. A lot of things never change. A lot of things do, of course. But if you understand the roots of business, okay, you'll be able to extend those business models out. Because there's nothing that new, okay? Now, you'll probably have the 100 book, and that deals with 100 events, from the beginning of American business to up into, I think I went as far as 2016. We covered some of the biggies there, the General Motors bankruptcy. Of course, the growth of Amazon, tremendous to have watched. That's one thing I'm blessed to watch in my lifetime. I remember when they couldn't, for 10 years, they never made a profit. People wondered why they were investing in them. And today, they're the second largest employer in the United States, with cash running out, they could support a government. So these are amazing, amazing stories, all tied into today. Again, I hope it makes for a real learning experience for you that'll be a bit unique, okay? Which hopefully what you paid for. In college, we want to do things different. We just don't want in high school. In high school, you had the text, you did the 10 questions at the end of the chapter, you did the case, whatever. I came out of operations, by the way. I spent half my life in operations. I went from a foreman on the floor to vice president. So I understand the problems, like as a foreman, chasing people around, making sure they swept the floor right, or spending most of my time making sure I could have enough people at work on the shift. I mean, it wasn't, you know, I had a master's degree. I wasn't using any of that stuff. I was using basic common sense. Okay, so hopefully you'll get a feel for all that too. So I hope you enjoy the books. I really do. Some of the courses will also, the operation are augmented with free, I try to get free books in from the internet, open source as we call them, I shouldn't say free. To make sure all the topics are covered. But the slides will cover all the new topics per se, supply chain, I also put a lot of text in there, new publications. So it's an integrated thing. I think if you really get into it, you're going to take a lot away. You're going to come out learning the history, what the industry is, and where it's going. I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy putting it together. It's my love, my passion. You know, I sort of grew up wanting to be an operations manager. I grew up wanting to be an operations manager. My dad was a plant manager. I was always so proud of him as a kid. You know, and I watched his struggles. You know, one time a couple guys beat him up on the floor. And these are real life struggles that happen. You know, and struggles that I had as a manager. When I got promoted one time, they said, here's the good news, you're promoted. Now here's the bad news. Here's a file of where we changed chemistries. You know, what was I to do? Now I had an ethical problem on my hands. You know, and I had to deal with that. I couldn't shut down the company, but I had to say, hey, from day one now, this ends. You know, those are the real things you'll run into out there. They're not fun. The guy did take a swing at me with a broom. I was telling you that broom story. Because they didn't really want me with my master's degree to become a foreman. I went that way. They wanted me in research. So my boss down in the mill, he said, why don't you get this? And he knew the guy was a nut job, really. I mean, seriously. Give him this broom and have him sweep. You know, well, I gave him the broom and he took the broom and swung it at me. So, you know, that's the way real life operations is. It's not as fun. And one last note on operations. If you love it, it's great. You'll start out a little lower than some of the other guys, like the accountants and so forth. But if you're successful, love the industry, understand its history, understand it, and just have a passion for it, you can get to a much higher salary in the end than the marketing or the accountants. Okay? But it takes that passion. So hopefully, I'll give you a seed for that passion, all right? Because you're going to see some great, you read about some great operating people that loved it and how they became very successful. Okay?